about work versus welfare. And this is a really important discussion to have right now because, according to the Prime Minister, people are literally staying on the jobless queue because we're frankly being paid more money than you would normally be paid to be on the dole. Here is Eliza Edwards with a bit more about the job keeper, job seeker fight that is about to unfold. And remember, unemployment is in part directly controlled by the state premiers who decide if you're allowed to cross the border and buy stuff or not.
Getting the economy back up and running is increasingly complex.
This is not a simple issue.
Customers are returning to some businesses as restrictions ease, but not all are so lucky.
The aviation sector, the tourism sector, the entertainment sector, the conferences and events sector. There are a lot of businesses that will still be impacted by these restrictions.
The Grattan Institute is the latest think tank calling for ongoing support in the form of $90 billion of stimulus after the JobKeeper scheme expires in September. But whatever replaces that scheme won't be as generous.
So the demand now is an extra $90 billion on top of what has already been spent, right? $90 billion. And then, of course, it'll be, what about 30 after that and 40 after that and all the rest of it here? Here's the Prime Minister saying you can't just keep borrowing money.
When you're burning through cash at a rate of almost $11 billion a month on JobKeeper, then obviously that's not something you can continue in that form forever. And that's why the government is being very careful in the considerations we're having. We're not rushing to any decisions. We're working carefully through all the various elements.
But again, the welfare lobby, well, they say that even when a job seeker disappears, or JobKeeper disappears, and the COVID payments disappear, well, the dole should be higher in the first place.
We've got 1.6 million people who woke up yesterday morning to one form of news that potentially the government was going to do a permanent increase to job seeker, and then very unclear for the minister yesterday. But I think everybody knows in their heart that we could not take people back to the brutality of that $40 a day payment. It was never enough, Peter. It hadn't been increased in over a quarter of a century in real terms.
Rowan Dean, everybody knows that, don't they? Everybody.
Look, this is so infuriating. Thank goodness we have Scott Morrison as the Prime Minister, and the rest of them are a shower. And I must say, I hope Scott Morrison has now realised what a huge mistake this National Cabinet is, because his decisions are fine and the decisions his immediate team are making are fine, but these other clowns, these premiers, are utterly hopeless. And I did warn on this program, Paul, many times that there would be massive unintended consequences from the JobKeeper, although the basic idea I always thought was solid in order to keep people in the job that they would then go back to. And let's not forget that when it was designed, people were talking about 18 months and a massive, millions of people dying around the world. The reality is, as you've just pointed out, the virus is nothing like what it was feared to be. Fantastic. But the reality is we've now addicted an awful lot of people onto welfare, and that always ends up, all the models from the Grattan Institute and all that are irrelevant. People get addicted to free money and you can't get them off it. And you hear from that woman and all the rest of them, all the lovies are out there now. Give us, please, let me have it, let me stay on the tits. I mean, it's just a joke, and it's the taxpayer. That's billions of dollars. It's our money. Please, can we have it back and end this madness?
And see, this is my whole point, Richo. I will have a conversation about whether or not there needs to be an extension in JobKeeper if the economy is as close to unrestricted as possible, right? But when you have these artificial locks on demand, yet a still guaranteed amount of welfare being pumped in, then we're not really seeing what's actually going on here. We're living in this sort of half-pregnant stage.
Yeah, look, I think we do need to know what demand really is. And I don't think we've got a number on that at the moment. It's very hard to know. I mean, statistics I always worry about how reliable they are in any event. But at the moment, I think that we just are a bit clueless about what the actual number is. And so I think, you've got to be cautious. But of course, as far as Rowan's concerned, if you give away money to anyone, it's terrible. Now, I just can't ever adopt that attitude. And I was born into a family that opposed it, and I'll oppose that idea for the rest of my days.
Well, Richo, sorry, I've got to pick you up on that. That's just so unfair and putting words into my mouth. Of course, I have no problem with a welfare state that looks after the disadvantaged and people who have fallen on hard times, and that's not what I was talking about. We know, for example, Richo, that people are getting more money from JobKeeper than they were getting before when they were in work. We know, for example, that there are some people who have been getting JobSeeker and JobKeeper, and now they're trying to work out which one that they're going to have to try and claw back. We also know, Richo, that there's people who are refusing to go back to work because they have JobKeeper. So do not put words in my mouth. I have nothing against a vibrant society that is wealthy enough and prosperous enough to look after those who are hard done by and those who fall on hard times. I have nothing against that, and don't you ever dare suggest that I do. What I'm saying, Richo, is that there are unintended consequences the moment a government starts giving away money, and we are seeing those unintended consequences, and they are costing the taxpayer a fortune, and they're costing people their livelihoods and their jobs, and that leads to suicide. So do not put words in my mouth. Thank you.
Go for it, Richard.
God, great speech. Great speech.
And I mean every word of it.
I'm not sure what it achieved. I'm not sure what it achieved. I don't recall accusing you of murdering people or trying to, and I obviously wouldn't. But that doesn't mean that doesn't actually get to the point. The point here is that people who are doing it tough have to be helped, must be helped. And I've spent a whole of my life trying to make sure that you lift them up as far as you can. And I don't resolve from that. I'm proud of it, and I'll continue to do it.
Right. Absolutely,
now,
Richard, but we're not talking about that. We were not talking about that. We were talking about the abuse of JobKeeper.
But I think we can all agree, right? We're all up for the safety net, but we don't want a hammock.
Absolutely.
Right? Like that's the point. We're all in for the safety net. That's the joy of the country, but we don't want it to become a hammock.